Hey everybody, welcome to another video in my top 100 games of all time. Today we're going to be doing number 21 through 30. So after this, next week will be the top 20 and that will be the end of it. So without any further ado, please click the link and go to the playlist if you're just catching this on the fly. We're going to go to number 30 now though, and that's going to be Age of Industry. Now this is another Martin Wallace design. I think it's the third or fourth on the list here. And I know the common notion is that brass is the better game. I don't know about that. I think this is just fine. The thing I like about Age of Industry is there are multiple maps and scenarios that you can play through. It's got a 2-player map, and it's a little bit more streamlined than brass. I always kind of view brass as another Age of Industry map, because in Age of Industry, depending on the map that you play, you are going to have some changes up to the rules and how everything kind of works out. Even in the base game, if you just get the base game with the 2 maps, the rules are very different from one side to the other. Now the thing that really makes me enjoy this, of course, is the multi-use cards, where you're playing cards for activating specific types of buildings or building buildings in specific areas based on the color of cards. And you are evolving your industry across different sort of timelines and areas and different maps, and really kind of have your fingers in a variety of things. So you might be sort of the coal provider, providing coals for people building railroads and shipping goods and all that kind of stuff, and you might do a little bit of that over here, a little bit of that over here, and then kind of switch gears and go from one kind of industry to another. And the way that the goods are consumed, it feels very natural and organic, where other players might be consuming those goods, or you might be shipping them to different distant ports, and each map is going to very much kind of change up how that works. And I love kind of the hand management about this game. You've got your loans and all that kind of stuff too, but the thing I really enjoy about this game, of course, is it's like card driven. I don't know, like Steam, or it's like, I don't know, it's like the card driven Euro. To me, it's like the king of that, where you have a hand of cards, and that is limiting your resources and sort of constraining all the options that you have. The doors aren't just wide open like they are usually in a Euro. So you've got that constraint, and you've got to deal with that. And that timer mechanism of how when the deck runs out, you know, that's going to be the end of it. I just love that about this game. Now, I played this with the gamer group and the family group. The family group's not as big a fan, and I don't know what it is, because it's like they get into Steam, they get into airplanes and some other sort of complex Euros, I guess, but this one, like, just, you know, nothing. It just doesn't click. That's what I'm trying to say, and that's interesting to me. I don't know why. And it's an interesting sort of side note, segue, is it's interesting to see what games people will grasp and what they don't grasp. And I get a lot of comments so far on these videos like, I can't believe you have this game and this game on the list, or such a diverse taste, or, you know, why is that on the list? That game's not very good. And I think every single person on this earth that you talk to is going to have, you're going to have the same reaction to them. Like, why do you like XYZ? How can you like Arkham Horror and Agricola, you know, or something like that? So, I mean, that's kind of what this is about. And I love the card-driven stuff. I just love a hand of cards. And to me, this is such a tight economic Euro. I love games with multiple maps. So that's, again, why this kind of gets that bump. And that's what this game is really about. It's really, really, really tight economically, which I really enjoy as well. But again, you've got that sort of easygoing feel of the hand of cards. So anyway, that is number 30, Age of Industry. Number 29, completely changing gears really, is Samurai. And this is a Reiner Knizia design, an older Reiner Knizia design, one of his foremost tile-laying games. And everybody has the same hand or deck of tiles, and you're placing that on the board to influence sort of like the 3 castes in Japanese society. So you're influencing the merchants and the politicians and the different kinds of religions and everything, and you're trying to sort of like win electoral votes in these 3 different categories. And the scoring is very wonky and weird, where you have to, and I'm going to screw this up because I'm explaining it off the top of my head, but you have to win the most groups. That's kind of how it is, and then usually there's like a tie, especially if you play with 4 players, and you've got to kind of break it down a bunch of tiebreakers. It's not that hard, but to explain it off the top of my head without the rulebook in front of me and haven't played it in a couple of months, it's difficult to explain, but it's not hard. And it's really cool. Now, the thing I like about the game is everybody has the same set of tiles. So you know there's the one tile that will like move and switch tiles, and the one is like the big beefy samurai, that's the 3. And the samurais are able to influence all of the different types, not just the type depicted on the tile. And so everybody has that. You know when people are using that, and you're trying to get them to use that in the most inefficient, wasteful way. Whereas you're trying to, use your tiles in the most efficient way. And to me, that's very political, where it's like, I'm going to go and put some influence over here in northern Japan and make you play your big tiles, because I've already kind of like locked this up, or hopefully I kind of steer you away from this, area where there's this nice sort of, provinces kind of next to each other, these cities next to each other, where I'm going to get a big lead in, the merchants and the farmers. And so it's all about that kind of bluffing and sort of, trying to get people to play poorly. And it really works. It's got a very sort of sublime Zen-like feel, because everything is very sort of, it's all numbers, and, the lines and the little statues, everything are very sort of, I don't know what the word is, minimalistic, I guess is the right word. So it feels very much like that, and you're like, you're staring at your opponent across the table, and you've got your dagger underneath the table to try to force them to play foolishly, and then you've caught them. So it's kind of like, has that chess vibe for me, or Go, or checkers or something, where it's a pure abstract, but heck, this game is thematic. I will argue to my grave that this game is thematic. It 100% is. So it's basically like the Electoral College in medieval Japan, but that's the glib way to do it. That was number 29, Samurai. Number 28 is Innovation, and this is another Carl Chudyk game. I think I've had 2 already. Yes, I have. Glory to Rome and Impulse I've already talked about. I'm trying not to spoil it, like, mention one that's ahead in the list. But this is the last one here, Innovation, and this is definitely my favorite one. This is very, very cool. It plays really well 2 and 3 player. I do not like it at all with 4 players. 3 players is probably my favorite way to play. And, people will say it's chaotic, and I will agree that the first few times you play it, it's going to be chaotic. But here's the thing. It's a civilization game. There's 10 decks of cards. Every card is unique. The Age 1 cards are never going to come out in Age 3. They might still be around by the time you go to Age 3, but you're going to know kind of the gist of the order that things come out. So you're going to have writing early, ship travel early, all these things. You're going to move into the Industrial Age. You're going to get into the Information Age. The nuclear bomb's going to come out later. So you can plan for that, and each of the cards has different icons on them that will allow you to activate different special abilities, or even leech off other people's special abilities. And getting back to the 3-player game, the thing I love about the 3-player game that a lot of Civilization games don't do is you have sort of a cooperative technological research kind of thing happening, where, okay, let's say Billy's out on the lead. He's got, a couple of the wonders. He's got a lot of scores in his score pile. And we're like, okay, well, screw him, he's in the lead. So we can make it so that whatever kind of the prevalent technology at the time is between me and you, and we can isolate them out. Now, normally in a 3-player game, that's a huge issue. But in this game, because of the amount of hidden information and sort of the chaos, it actually works pretty well. And it doesn't feel like you're leader bashing or just, pinning one guy off to the side. They still have opportunity to come back if they play their cards right. And again, alliances can shift, pretty quickly. And it's thematic. You have this evolution of technology. The cards get more chaotic and more crazy as the game goes on. But again, you kind of look forward to that, because you feel like you've grown out of this, sort of Stone Age of very simple technologies allowing you to draw extra cards and all that kind of stuff, to wiping out score piles. And, if you drop a nuke, you reset the board. But it's like you reset the board, but not back to the way it was. You're now in post-apocalypse. I mean, that's awesome. I don't even know, the Civ board game doesn't do post-apocalypse. It just goes to, at the end of the game, somebody wins with the biggest army or goes to space. Well, what about afterwards? What if somebody drops the bomb? This game has that. I love it. So anyway, so all those things kind of come into play. Yes, it's chaotic, blah, blah, blah. Stop commenting. Anyway, sorry, I'm just teasing. All right, number 27 is San Juan, and this is a little bit of sentimentality, but with the 2nd edition of San Juan, it really pushes it up for me. And this one is like a borderline filler. I played it so many times. This might be my most played game on the list. Played a lot at lunch, played a lot with the family, played a little bit with the new gamer group. Little hidden secret, I had an old gamer group back in the early 2000s that we used to play this all the time. And I distinctly remember the first time I played it, and I was like, this is like Magic the Gathering, but it's awesome. It was like a Eurofied Magic for me because, what was this, 2004 or 5 when it came out, I think? And when they played it, I went over to my friend's house, and they were a married couple, and they used to play together. And they said, "Hey," and it was only the 3 of us. Usually we had 4 or 5, you know. And they said, "Well, hey, let's try San Juan. That works pretty good with 3 players." And we played it, and they cleaned my clock like the first time we played it. But I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is blow my mind." And then we played it a few more times. I'm not sure if I won a game that night or not, but I don't think I did. But I got hooked on the game. I love it. I love it, because you can set up so many different combos. Now, if you just get the old original first edition, you're going to kind of play it out, especially nowadays, because back then there wasn't so many games like this. You didn't have Race for the Galaxy. You kind of will play it out, I think. I don't know how many plays it would take people, because it's funny, this like gamer mind, it's almost like a zeitgeist. But I don't know if it's just me, right? Because back when you used to play games in the early 2000s, like you didn't know any better, right? So it was like, oh, Catan is amazing. I still like Catan, but you know, and then you shift it until now, and it's like, well, you have all these different sort of words of this language of gaming that's happened. So things seem kind of quaint, I guess. But this one does not seem quaint, because when you shift out of that first edition, you add in that expansion, and now in the second edition, you have all these other sort of paths to victory. Where in the basic set, I don't know, there was probably 3 or 4, I don't really know, but because it's all tactics and you can kind of maneuver, so that's not really a path, that's sort of a detour maybe on the same path. But now you've got extra things, so you've almost got like a shipping strategy. That was the one thing that Race kind of did better than San Juan, is because you could do kind of the building, get lots of buildings out, boom, boom, boom. I got all my buildings before you did, and I raced to the end of the game and beat you. But then you were turning up your shipping engine in Race for the Galaxy and just pumping out victory points. That was the best part about that, and that's where kind of Race eclipsed this game. You won't see Race on this list, actually. But now, with you got like the harbor and the office, the customs office, and things like that, that you can do kind of like a shipping strategy and generate points and burn cards for points instead of just going for purely getting the 12 buildings. But it's simpler than Race. It's like I said, I play with my family a lot. It's very accessible, but there's still a good amount of, you know, heavy decision in terms of like, what do I do with this giant hand of cards or small hand of cards that I might have. So I can't recommend it enough. I think this is the one that I think it should be in every kind of gamer's collection or whatever. I hate all those words in that sentence, but that's what I think. Gamer collection should be all those words. So that's number 27, San Juan. Number 26, now this is the other game that I don't have. I mentioned in the last video, Lancaster, I don't have it. Same reason. This one I'm a little bit more off the hook, because when I got rid of Lancaster back in the Kickstarter, the top 100 was kind of in my mind. I wasn't thinking about what would be in it. But this one, top 100 wasn't even in my mind. And I got the collector's edition to support the new app for Twilight Struggle. And so I don't have it. So sorry, no pictures of this one either. Now this one, I've really gone back and forth between 1989 and Twilight Struggle. And part of the thing was I got rid of 1989 because 1989 kind of is a better game. I don't know. Like, I go back and forth, but at the end of the day, in sort of my peaceful meditation time, I was like, no, I want to have World War III. That's what I want in the game. 1989 is a very nice historical study. Lots of in-depth nooks and crannies to explore, and sort of the tides of the East and West. And it's like 1 year, obviously, in Twilight Struggle, basically the last year. And Twilight Struggle spans, end of World War II till 1989. And so I just really like that. And of course, the collector's edition really kicks in, so it's like a nice edition. And it's a little bit, actually, rules are a little simpler in Twilight Struggle, I think. So I should be able to get more people to play it over the next few years. And so really, they're the same game in a lot of ways. There are differences, but again, back to card management, hand management. You've got multi-use cards in this case, where you can play for operations points and then also the event, or sometimes accidentally trigger the event for your opponent. You kind of have to weigh that. You can dump cards into China and all that stuff. So, and you've got to really worry about the scoring card thing is amazing, because you have the scoring cards that get dealt out to the players and they have to play it by the end of that round. And you can sort of try to figure out if the other player is either bluffing that they have a scoring card, setting up for the scoring card possibility in the next round, thinking that you have the scoring card, or they're really going for it and they really want to score the card. And it also has that issue of the kind of the instant victory overhanging your head as well, which is very interesting because sort of like the dominoes falling early on in Southeast Asia and, you know, Eastern Europe and Western Europe, and the sort of the swings, and you get that sort of epic scope of the Cold War and all that kind of cool stuff like that. And in Cuba comes into play. It's just, it's crazy. It's crazy how much history and theme they squeeze in to these cards and what they do. And you just get that whole KGB, CIA spying, you know, just doing horrible, awful things, manipulating these poor little countries. You know, at the end of the day, I mean, it's almost like it makes you angry a little bit because it's the world's so screwed up from these two idiots going at each other for the last 50 years, you know, and that caused all of this you know, upswing we see from a lot of these different countries. So I'm going to stop being political and go on to the next game. But it's great. It's a great history lesson, and it's a good sort of not sympathizing thing. I'll be very clear about that. It's sort of an empathizing study and learning from people's mistakes kind of thing. That's Twilight Struggle. Now, number 25 is Claustrophobia. A great two-player game. I think this is my highest dungeon crawly game. This is fantastic. I love this game. It's like a dungeon crawl, Hero Quest style game, but it's two-player only, and it's streamlined for two players, and it works very well. And it's like the boss basically is playing Kingsburg or Alien Frontiers on their board. So you have like these crazy little, I want to say they're like worker placement in the Euro-y kind of things, but it's almost like a push your luck kind of aspect of it too, because, you know, like the boss, you can only use certain abilities once per scenario, and then you have the sort of dwindling amount of options as your heroes take damage, and you've got a whole hand of cards kind of augmenting that. Tons and tons and tons of scenarios. I have the first expansion. I never got the second expansion. I think there's only 2 expansions. I never got the second expansion yet just because I haven't played that much recently, so there's no reason to buy it. Just put it in the box and leave it there. But there's also like a campaign you can download online and all kinds of crazy stuff. The miniatures come pre-painted. They're gorgeous. I cannot say enough. If you're like a Euro person and you want to try this kind of, you want to have that like guilty pleasure of the Ameritrash game, get this game because it's easy to set up. The scenarios play out relatively differently. You know, they give you enough variety. The components are just out. I can't even tell you how gorgeous they look. It's just it's a fun game to play, easy, quick. You just go at each other head to head. It's a 2-player skirmish game. That's all it really is. But it's completely asymmetrical, and you've got different heroes that you can use and interchange, and that's going to change up the game a little bit for the heroes. And then, you know, the boss can be different guys. So you have one sort of miniature that represents sort of the big boss, but he's going to have different special abilities based on the scenario and stuff. Really cool. And kind of a weird theme, like prisoners trying to redeem themselves and, you know, go into the catacombs of this crazy French world of these, like, you know, demons coming out and stuff. It's crazy. It's a cool thing. So that's 25, Claustrophobia. Now, number 24. Unfortunately, I was hoping to have this by the time the video was being recorded, but time constraints lead it. Now, the entry for me is officially going to be BSD Express. Now, you probably, if you go search that on Board Game Geek, is going to be Dark Moon, which is not out yet. But I do have a copy on its way to me. Now, BSD Express is a streamlined version of Battlestar Galactica from Fantasy Flight. It plays in less than an hour, no problem, even with 5 players. It plays great at 3, 4, and 5 players. And it's kind of like Liar's Dice meets Battlestar Galactica. Now, I've read through the rules of Dark Moon, and it's pretty much the same, but it seems like they might have, I don't want to say fixed, but they might have sort of balanced things a little bit better because it is hard to win as the Cylons. But I really like that about BSD Express because you have the same thing in Battlestar Galactica where you have the switch where you kind of re-deal out the Cylon card. So it could be nobody's a Cylon at the beginning. But if that's the case, you know somebody's going to be a Cylon by the second half. So if you're a smart player, you will not make it so easy at the beginning because you might end up being a Cylon. And I just love that mechanic. That's one of the best thing about Battlestar Galactica is the roll switch halfway through the game. That is the single best mechanic in any of these kind of games, these trader games. And this has that. This has the whole same thing of lying where it's like, but it's more like lying to your face instead of like putting in cards. You have to submit a die and you're like, oh, I only rolled negative dice. Oh, you Cylon, you know, and that kind of stuff. So it has that. It plays quick. It's very exciting because of the die rolling. It somehow makes it a little bit more exciting. But I've seen in a 5-player game, the Cylons win. I mean, it is doable for sure. Now, it is balanced more towards the humans with BSD Express as it was. Now, Dark Moon, I wish I could have had this earlier, so I will definitely do a review of Dark Moon. So it could be that I just straight swap BSD Express for Dark Moon, or keep them both, or what, or something. You know, we'll figure that out together. But anyway, so this is BSD Express / Dark Moon, because that's how it's going to come tagged on Board Game Geek. But I will give you a sneak peek. I looked at the rules, I looked at all the artwork and everything that's online. My expectations are high for Dark Moon, so I know there's that. So that is number 24, BSD Express / Dark Moon. Number 23 is Mage Wars. And I'm going to cheat and say this is my only miniatures game on the list. Now, I've been a big fan of other miniature style games. I'm not going to talk about those. But to me, that's what Mage Wars really is. It is sort of billed as Magic the Gathering, but more realistic, a little bit more thematic, because you've got your own spell book, the cards that you can choose from and play whatever spells you can afford and pay for. And you're moving guys around. There's grid combat, there's tactics, there's space, there's movement, there's traps and there's walls that you can form and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I'm really looking forward to the domination and the modular boards. I've been praying for that thing to come out, because the board itself, I'm not going to say it gets static, because I don't think it gets static, but it's just going to be really cool. You can do like capture the flag and can do control points, which is like all of these first-person shooters that I've ever played. Because Quake is fine, right? You run around and just blow the crap out of each other, but it's more fun if you're defending a base and have objectives. And so that's going to add all that to Mage Wars. But the great thing about this game is it's a very sort of epic feeling game. It takes about an hour and a half to play once you get the hang of it. And each of the different spellcasters that you have in the game is going to play way different. You've got Force users, which are like Jedi, basically. You've got Druids, which grow these plants, and then these vines, actually, we're going to spring out plants and traps and things and just kill all kinds of stuff. So the other opponent's got to burn all that stuff down, and then maybe you're summoning some of your earth creatures to come out and fight the guy. And then you've got the Warlock, who is raising things from the dead, or the Necromancer raising things from the dead, and then the Warlock actually, is life draining people. And you've got the Warlord, who's going to have like soldiers and then also big weapons. So like each of the different spellcasters feels so thematic and just, it's really cool. I mean, the special abilities, this is the great thing. This is what I love about this game, is because I've played a lot of miniatures games. I've played a few. I got some others actually that I need to get around to reviewing and playing. But the interesting thing about most miniature games that I played, they're a little bit more simpler, right? So you move around, you got line of sight, combat, stuff like that. Well, to get into sort of any sort of cool sort of depth and the special abilities and the characteristics and the things that make the units unique, Mage Wars does that so easily, where you've got just cards on the board and they're very nicely illustrated, very clear to read. I mean, sometimes you get a lot of cards on the board and it's sort of hard to figure out what's going on, but it's not usually a big deal, because you've got your cards, your opponent has their cards, you're kind of responsible for your own cards. It doesn't get that confusing really, sometimes, but not often. But you have this sort of imaginary kind of thing just sort of arise out of the board with all of these cool combos and different special abilities that in a normal miniatures games you wouldn't be able to really keep track of. But here they're just on the card. I know it sounds so simple, but it works really, really well. And I can't tell you enough how I really enjoy this game. So anyway, I can't wait for the new stuff to come out, because then it'll kind of reinvigorate it for me, I'm sure. And I have a buddy of mine that we just, basically I only play with him. I played with other people, but it's basically me and him. And it's been some time now since we played it. So that's number 23, Mage Wars. 22 is Bora Bora. And this is completely changing gears from Mage Wars and the other game I talked about, Claustrophobia. We're going into like full-on Euro mode. For a while, this was my number one Feld. There's another one that's higher. You probably guessed it. It's not that it's dropped. It's just that the other one I've become more enamored with in terms of like stepping back and looking at the design and going, holy cow. But this one has a really cool dice mechanism where it's kind of a worker placement dice thing. And it's great with 3 and 4 players. With 2 players, it's all right with 2 players, but it's really great with 3 and 4 players. And it has one interesting thing that I've never really seen done before, where it's a worker placement, but it's like worker placement with spikes and knives on the workers. Because when you place the dice, you're kind of screwing people out of, possibly anyway, screwing them out of what they could be doing even on the same space. So it's not necessarily that you're blocking it, but you're just like, oh, you have to now use this other worker, which you wanted to save for this other thing, and now you've screwed it for everybody, not just like one person. So it's very point salad-y. I get that. I mean, it's got billions of ways to score different points, but it really, really works in this game where you really have to take a good assessment of what everybody on the table is working towards, and everybody's got these kind of weird goals that they get, and there's a lot of different sort of multipliers and things, and there's a little bit of that sort of combo-rific thing that can happen, which is cool, which I'll talk more about when I get to my number 1 game. But going back all the way to Castles of Burgundy, this one even more so I think has that sort of combo boom. You can have the big turn and just do a couple of different things more than just like doing the placement and doing the action. It's got all that kind of stuff on top of it. So that's it. I mean, that's a feld. I'm just going to talk mechanics, so I'm not going to talk a whole lot more about it. But that to me is close to his number one game. And so number 21, last game for today, is Caverna. Now, Agricola you won't see in this list. Caverna has replaced it. Well, kind of Caverna plus Agricola, all creatures big and small, plus playing Agricola on the iPad has kind of replaced Agricola. Still kind of do miss the card drafting and card dealing. But the thing that trumps it for me with Caverna is having so many options wide open for you on the board that you can really sit down and build a complete engine. And the thing that I feel like I've done when I've played Caverna versus Agricola now is I feel like I've built like a little industry, like a little mini kingdom of dwarves, doing their thing, whether they're into brewing beer or they're more farmers or whatever. Whereas Agricola, I feel like I just kind of made it through and I survived and I had enough food to feed my family. Agricola is cool because you got these, warriors you can send out for quests, and you can get that little combo thing where I can go boom, boom, boom. Okay, get this little extra item. I just need that one extra vegetable or whatever. Now I can trigger this whole other sweep of actions that I can do on this side. And it's great. And again, you have this visual representation of what you've done, a big cave or home with a field outside. And it's like they took the house in Agricola, blew it up, and then made it like its own little industry. And then you still got the farm and everything. I love a Caverna. Caverna is fantastic. It plays up to 7. I'll probably never play with 7, but I totally would one day just to play it because I really enjoy this game. This is one that I'm able to play with the family. Now we play with the trimmed down options because you got sort of the simple sides of the boards with only a few different buildings. Well, there's still a lot, and then you got the other side, you just got everything. So I know there's an expansion coming up, which I'm a little scared of because I don't think everything should be available. So maybe I've seen some discussions online about making only certain ones available or shuffling them up, or maybe giving everybody like a little starting building or two to sort of tack on the strategy or deal of that. So you would kind of get back to sort of the card drafting. But yeah, I know people like the card stuff in Agricola, but you can get like a horrible deal of cards. Like, you know what? I don't feel like spending 40 minutes trying to figure out the combo with those cards because sometimes it's like, I don't get it. I don't see the combo. And so there's that. But yeah, I love the theme of dwarves too, just kind of like working and doing different things and being very industrious. The whole theme really comes through. So anyway, that's number 21. Trying to keep these a little shorter. I know they're getting longer as I get towards the end. So hopefully I'm getting my point across clearer. But yes, so next week, top 20. See ya.